All right. So we have five things. The next thing we're going to do is prepare the organization for change, and that is create a sense of urgency, build your coalition of the willing, and a vision. So one of the things you said is you're going to go out there and educate people on the value of data, I guess is where you're going to start.
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? So what is the vision, potentially the vision, of like one or two talking points on the power of data? How are you going to create urgency, and how are you going to build the coalition of the willing?
Well, yeah, it's a great question, friend. You have to paint a vision that is compelling and motivating. And I think if I do anything in the industry right now, I think that's what I spend most of my time on. And, if you describe the use of data to enable better digital conversations between a physician and a patient, right? I've got my aspirational statement hanging on my wall right over here. I should take it off and read it to you. When you read those aspirational statements to a clinician and to a patient and to an administrator, and they go, yep, that's exactly what we need to do.
Well, what is your aspirational statement?
Here, okay, hold on. I wish I were smart enough to have it memorized, but I still don't. So I'm going to pull it off the wall. Hang on here.
Well, we'll just admire the beautiful picture of your family back there by the lake. That looks nice.
That's up in Canada a couple of years ago. Okay, you ready? Here it is. So this is the aspirational statement that we have here at Health Catalyst, but I'd have this hang in my office if I were a CIO. We provide the software, data, and professional services that enable physicians to extend this commitment to their patients. I can make a health optimization recommendation for you, informed not only by the latest clinical trials, but also by local and regional data about patients like you, the real world health outcomes over time of every patient like you, and the level of your interest and ability to engage in your own care. In turn, I can tell you within a specified range of confidence which treatment or health management plan is best suited for a patient specifically like you and how much that will cost. So, we literally parse this statement and we look at it and we go, okay, what's the technology and what's the data that we have to achieve and enable that conversation? And when you read that to physicians and administrators, they go, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And when you read that to patients, they nod their head. Boy, I'd love to have that kind of conversation with my physician.
And I think we all get this, right? So
yeah.
What we're saying is we're gonna enable you to be a better CFO with the data. We're gonna enable you to be a better CEO with the data. We're gonna enable you to be a better clinician with the data. We're even gonna enable you to be a better patient or consumer of health with the data. It is the enabler for all these things, and that's the vision we're sort of painting. But how do you build the sense of urgency around, hey, we need to start doing things now? Because generally what people do is they go in there and say, hey, things are dramatically changing in this space. You feel it with, how they'll paint the picture of a Blockbuster or Amazon or whatever. And they'll say, look, all these things are changing. Healthcare is changing. But, my experience, I came in from outside of healthcare, and my experience was, hey, things are changing rapidly. And then when I came into healthcare, I said, I think healthcare is going to change in 3 years. And the things I was saying 6 years ago that were going to change in 3 years haven't changed yet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I said the same thing. I wrote a paper for HIMSS 12 years ago that said analytics and decision support, we're standing on the brink of a revolution. That was 12 years ago. And we still are a long way from what I described in that paper. I thought we were within a year or two of it. It's funny, right, Bill? Everyone has a sense of urgency. I mean, all except the most passive and apathetic people in healthcare, and there aren't very many of those. Right. Everybody has a sense of urgency, but I think we're trapped on a treadmill that makes it incredibly difficult to implement the kinds of changes that we'd like to. The system makes it very difficult, which makes me sort of pessimistic about whether the existing system can change fast enough, or whether it's going to be an Amazon or a Google or an Apple or an ABC consortium that pulls it off. There are always the old guard in every culture who feel like they're either surrendering to the fact that we can't change, or they're not convinced that we're not good enough. And, you know, quite often as part of change management, you just have to get the right people on the bus. So if there are key people that are holding back the organization's progression towards being data driven in a smart way and being more digital, I think you have to get rid of those people, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had lots and lots of turnover, and it's not something you go into with a light heart at all. It's brutal. It's horrible. But if you don't get the right people on the bus, then certainly your sense of urgency is going to suffer. Now, whether good people on the bus can still operate within the constraints we have is still yet to be seen, actually.
Yeah, but building the coalition of the willing isn't as hard as it once was, because we've had successes, right? So people are out there going, oh, I've seen what, you know, this house, I've seen what Asante's done, I've seen what Intermountain's done, I've seen what Geisinger's done, and they're able to say, hey, why can't we do those things? So, and you find enough of those people that are saying we want to do those things. That's your coalition of the willing right there.
Totally. Yeah. Find the early, and when you go out, you know, and you're building these relationships, find the folks that are passionate about change, that are passionate about doing it from a data perspective, and that have influence in the organization. Look for those three qualities, and then attach yourself as an IT person to those folks. You know, I always reference back to Don LePay, head of cardiology in the cardiovascular clinical program at Intermountain. He was my first clinically influential anchor at Intermountain. When I came in, I didn't know anything about healthcare, but I knew a lot about analytics and data warehousing. And I just found him and his staff, they were data driven and they were research oriented. And I said, you know, I think I can make your life easier with the technology that I understand. And Don became the seed for influencing the rest of the company and clinicians. When they saw all the cool things that he was doing around data, then a lot of folks followed.
Yeah, and that is such a huge principle for CIOs. The CIO shouldn't be influencing as much as sort of coming alongside the influencers.